Good evening, Garden City. I'd like to call to order our City Council budget meeting for Monday, March 2nd, 2026 at 6 p.m. Our first order of business is the Pledge of Allegiance. Please rise. I pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Mr. Smith, if you take roll call, please.
Mayor Jacobs.
Here.
Mayor Pro Tem Dold.
Here.
Councilmember Hughes.
Here.
Councilmember Witt.
Here.
Councilmember King.
Here.
Councilmember Dold.
Here.
Councilmember Karafotis.
Here.
You have a quorum of 7.
Okay, thank you. Item 4 is our approval of the agenda.
Mayor,
Councilmember Witt.
I'd like to make a motion to approve the City Council budget meeting for Monday, March 2nd at...
Support.
Support from Councilmember Karafotis. Discussion from table. From the public. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes 7-0. Okay, we're into our items for consideration, our budget department presentations. Introduction, Mr. Gibbons.
Thank you, Mayor and Council. Tonight begins the budget, part of the budget process where we have each department present essentially where they're at this year, where they want to go next year, and what they've done with your money over the past year. And some of it will be some details and some will be more broad strokes, but ultimately it's this part of the process that helps us build a budget essentially department by department. Before you tonight, you'll see the police, the fire, city administration, personnel, general government services, and the court. Contained in all those budgets is essentially just the first draft. These are department requests. As our budget gets pieces together, we build, and then we make determinations and prioritize, ultimately ending with me presenting you a budget before April 1st of this year so that we can begin the process of making those considerations on where we're going to spend our money and how we're going to prioritize the tax dollars and the money we take in. The first part will be my introduction. I believe it's important when we have a budget discussion. Some of this will be repetitive from last year, but we are in definitely a different place than we were at last year through some hard work and great effort by our employees. But I still think it's important to always set the table on what it looks like to be a Michigan municipality, subject to the type of taxation and the revenue sharing and Prop A and Headley. So to understand, where we get our funding from, how that's constrained in some respects, how it's not in others, and what I want to add this year too is just in terms of legacy cost, what we're looking at over the next 10 to 15 years as far as that's concerned. We've done some research lately that can provide some information and kind of give us what our job, I think, should be over the next 10 years or so as to how to run the city financially. But first, 2025-26 budget we are in the middle of. We're currently operating about 3% below. I stated this at the last meeting, under by about $1 million, which is pretty good considering we have some projects going on, such as continuing the fire station rehabilitation. That isn't necessarily the expected cost. We're kind of dealing with some of the issues there that weren't necessarily expected, and we're finding them out as we go. So to be operating at this point of the year, still below budget at a steady pace is good. You never want to be, budget is a guess ultimately. You're guessing that, history will guide you and your revenues will come in as they're supposed to. Each year we always in Garden City do, like I say, a lot more with less, and this year is no different. But if you recall last year, our use of fund balance was over $2.5 million. This year the projected is $374,000, but we're not even heading at that pace. We're operating under, so that's good. I just always, again, set the table. I like to start with a budget philosophy. I believe we create a long-term financial plan to create service and financial stability by doing the following. Return to and build on those financial decisions made during the Great Recession. We dedicate funds to maintain and improve services, lower long-term costs. We size our operations based on what we can afford, maintain that high fund balance, and seek opportunities to get value to our citizens. And I think we do that well, and we'll continue to do that next year. And that's the standard to which I hold our department heads, is to do just that. How much value can you produce for the revenues or for the amount of money you're given? 25-26 budget, we reduced and eliminated our over-reliance on the general fund. So now we can prioritize increasing fund balance according to our fund balance policy. We can plan for future revenues and see if we can dedicate those towards reducing legacy costs, though I have two, I think, pretty informative slides on that tonight that'll kind of guide those decisions. And identify and correct any areas where last year's budget cuts impacted long-term essential service delivery. I'm asking all department heads to address staffing in their presentations, what they need, there's always, what you can get by with and what's ideal. We always strive for the ideal, but with municipal financing, we live with what we can do, but we at least have to do the same consistent level of service Garden City always provides. We continue to evaluate all capital projects based on whether they reduce operational costs versus increase them. We prioritize capital spending that reduces and grant fund and spending that reduces operational costs, not increase. From a base level, how are we funded? The city receives about $11 million in general operating tax revenue and approximately $2 million from public safety millage. To put that into context, the police and fire department alone combined to over $13 million in expenses. So we rely heavily on the remainder of operations to be funded by state revenue sharing, assessments, and each department's ability to generate its own revenue. Some departments do, some don't, but there are other sources of funding that come to support them. Water department, roads, those things have outside sources that can help us get by. So what's municipal financing look like in Michigan? I always refer back to this chart to understand our history here in Garden City and what we've gotten through. If you could see in 2008, 2009, the city's state equalized value, which is what the state values each home at, which is about half of what each home is worth, stood at $885 million, and we were able to tax about $726 million of it. I mean, that's close to 90% could be taxed. Because of Prop A and Headley over the course of time and the Great Recession reducing property values, the line between the blue and the red were pretty in line until we got to, started to recover from the Great Recession, which means property values rose exponentially, but our ability to tax them can only increase at a rate consistent with inflation. So the blue is never going to catch up to the red unless there's a great dip again, and we don't want that. Meaning, back in 2008, 2009, we were able to operate with a lot more funds considering the value of the dollar in 2008, 2009 than we can now. And I created this chart just to get the perspective. Really, in today's dollars, our taxable value is more like $1.2 billion, and our ability to tax it would have been almost $1 billion of those dollars. These days, we have about a $1.2 billion state equalized value, but we're only able to tax $793 million worth of that, roughly. So this isn't a speech advocating for higher taxes or more things, but the reality is there's less money coming in than there used to be. So we have to do more with less, and we have. Same thing, this reflects when you say, okay, what are you able to tax? What does that translate to? We were able to tax $11 million in 2006. We're able to tax $11 million in 2026. That's 20 years later, 20 years of inflation. We're dealing with exactly the same amount of money with a lot less buying power. If you do that and you consider it inflation, it was like in 2006, we had 18 million worth of revenue coming in, and now we have 11. If you just look at that in terms of dollars as they were in 2006, the value of a dollar and the value of the dollar is today. Same thing with state shared revenue. If the state, when Prop A and Headley passed, which limited our ability to keep our taxable value equal to our state equalized value, they promised state revenue sharing, and it's been given but reduced over time, and ultimately, the value of what they used to give us in '06 is about worth $4.7 million. Today, it's worth about $3.8 million. Again, doing a little more with less. So how does this translate? In 2000, I look back at the 2012 budget, had it listed in there, our staffing levels, in one of the charts. 2000, 2001, in that budget year, we had 174 full-time employees, 203 full-time equivalent employees, meaning if you add the part-time plus the full-time, 203 essentially 40-hour employees. Fast forward 25 years later, we got 114 full-time employees, 143 full-time equivalent employees. So you add our part-time. We're still far, far below where we were in 2000. Not saying we need those levels exactly, but just to understand the job is getting done in 25 years later with 30 to 35% less people. And our population was 30,000 in 2000, it's 27,000 in 2025. So our population went down by 10%, but the people servicing those same amount of people, nearly same amount of people, is reduced by a third. Upcoming this year, you'll notice in our budget, those staff members, through mostly union contracts, are entitled to a 3% contract raise negotiated. Pretty consistent with average raises throughout Michigan. These are the charts I really want to talk about, and I think it sets the table for planning for the next 10 years. I've spoken to council a number of times about developing a financial plan that's realistic and acknowledges the challenges we face, but also, working towards a bright future. And some decisions were made prior to my time. Some were made in 2015, and some were made in 2009 during the course and the sort of the hangover of the Great Recession, to get us to a better place in the middle of 2030. And if you look at this chart, this is from MERS. I asked them to do a study to tell me what would happen, how much would we have to spend to get our funding levels raised, and how much could we get to a place where our funding levels start to drop. Fortunately, in 2015, there was a decision made that already kind of put us on a path, and maybe it was mandated by MERS, maybe it was just from our administration at the time, but that blue line represents what we're projected to pay towards the pension fund in order to keep it solvent. You see it rising till mid to end of 2030s, and then it drops precipitously as we start to reach the 100% funded. What happens then is we start not having to contribute millions of dollars to our pension system, and we start having that money for city services. We can make how much it's appropriate to tax at those times, and it gets us out of where we're at these days, which is, doing more with less, and might put us in a time where when these costs start to fall, to really starting to grow some extra services. That said, it isn't when I show you these charts, I'm not showing you that we won't do great things now, but it does put everything in context and sort of sets the table about what can be done. But what I was really encouraged when I saw these charts is essentially, even if we do everything, if we don't contribute extra money, we're on a great path towards a significant reduction in contributions over the next 10 years. There is light at the end of the tunnel. The hard work will pay off, and we're moving in the right direction. The same thing goes with other employee benefits, such as retiree health care and those things. A decision was made in 2009 to stop offering retiree health care to any employees hired after 2009. Immediately, that doesn't amount to an immediate financial impact, but long-term, it does reduce costs drastically. So if you assume that this year, whatever amount we're paying, it will continue to rise till 2034, up to about 25% of what the cost is today, so 25% over 8 years. But then you'll notice as the blue goes down, we like when it goes down, it'll go down to a point where we're actually paying less in a number of years in the future than we do now. So as a city manager, what I see my goal is right now is to work with council to develop a plan that maintains strong, stable services that improve each year, but also maintain the ability to get to this point where we don't have to do any drastic reductions or anything extreme in order to get to 2034, 2035, when we can start to really look at the back end of recovering from the cost. We are on a plan, and I wanted a 10-year plan, and it was actually nice to see, based on some actuarial reports, that we are on a 10-year plan. And as long as we stay the course and continue to operate in a fiscally responsible manner, don't take on any new grand expenses, but just slowly build back, that I think we'll be in a really good place. That I think that's more than a lot of municipalities can say, that we're able to maintain the levels of service we have throughout this entire time. So it's a testament to our previous administrations who negotiated those contracts in 09, 10, 12, 13, 14, 15, through the real dark days of post-recession. They've given us a plan that we can now see light at the end of the tunnel. And these are actuarial, almost, when the actuary gives you numbers, it's usually in the worst case scenarios. So I anticipate that, we'll move towards these expeditiously, those good times where our retirement health care benefit contributions are lower, our pension contributions are lower. In fact, I saw our retiree health care liability was $121 million in 2020. It's now 65 million-ish. So we've seen drastic reductions on those costs. So I anticipate that we're moving in a direction that's consistent with those charts, if not better. Again, it's about doing more with less, and we've demonstrated that over time. We are, when I look back at our staffing history, we're down lower than we were for the previous 6 years, but we're higher than we were over the decade prior. And we'll continue to seek extra grant funding. We'll continue to seek extra revenues from outside sources to deliver those services and find the most efficient way to produce values for our citizens. The next would be the police in your order, but I think because I'm up here and because the PowerPoint's up here, I'm going to cover general services, general government services, mayor and council fund, boards and commission fund, and my administration and personnel funds. So you'll have those before you. What you'll notice in the packet you were given that says 2026-27 budget presentations, you'll see all those departments. You'll also see attached to those that have personnel attached to them, that there's a personnel report with the individuals in that division with their compensation, and just to get a rough idea of what each department looks like. So I like to build a budget piece by piece, and we will do that tonight. We'll start to do that tonight. First, though, the General Government Services Fund. This is the catch-all. It provides a fund number for collecting tax revenue, paying out costs that relate to all the departments, auditing costs, those things where every department has a service being performed by it. General Government Services will cover that. And also on the revenue side, collect all those revenues that need to be dispersed to the individual departments, but start from a broad sense. When I point out some of these General Government Service Fund account numbers, just to give you some perspective, there's a few that always stick out to me that don't necessarily have an explanation. I like to make sure we understand them. The first is rent. In the General Government Service Fund, the rent for Maplewood is recognized, not the rent. You'll see there are other rents that are at the Radcliffe Center tied directly to the Radcliffe Center. We moved the Maplewood out into the General Services Fund. As we near the end of the budget, I may actually separate Maplewood completely from General Government Services, both the electrical, the water, the rent side, put in its own revenue and expense account so you can have a good look at just the costs of Maplewood Center based on its revenues and expenditures. But for now, it's in the General Government Services Fund, but as we move towards the end of the month, I want to see what that looks like if it's pulled out separately. I like to be able to evaluate each service we provide in a manner that tells us, how much does this truly cost the city? And it makes for easier evaluations as the year goes on. Next is the auditing. Like I said, there's auditing. That's the account to pay for yearly audit by Plant Moran. And then self-insurance hospitalization. It's an account that pays for contractually obligated health insurance costs and others beyond insurance coverages that's sort of spread across the departments. The next is the Mayor and Council Fund and Boards and Commissions Fund. These are pretty static funds. They provide the compensation for Mayor and Council. That provides legal services, so our city attorney is paid out of this fund. The city attorney works for Garden City Council. It is their attorney, and it is paid from there. So when you might be looking at this like, well, why does council need a legal services fund? Well, you're paying it for the entire city. And then this was discussed last year, and I made sure I added this one as recognitions. It's an account to pay for the public recognition of groups, businesses, citizens, and volunteers throughout the year who improve Garden City without compensation. There's been a drastic decrease. This was $23,000 in 2023. It was reduced to $6,000 last year. I don't even know if we'll hit that this year, but we have used some of it to recognize. It was also used to pay for volunteer dinner and things like that. But given what we were facing last year, and really what we continue to face, it's not an account that I want to see a major increase into. I want to prioritize those funds to another part of the city. That's not to say we don't want to recognize our citizens and our volunteers throughout the year. We get a tremendous value from them. It's just what can we afford to do to recognize them? I think it's less than $23,000. And last on my list, mine are pretty simple. There's the city manager account, fund, and the human resources fund. Mine are pretty straightforward, mostly related to my compensation and office supplies and such like that. And then the next is human resources, who is really a department that provides a service to every single department. Like the human resources is the HR for police, fire, all those. They don't have their own individuals. So human resources provides the human resources services for all of Garden City. The accounts I like to point out there is the arbitration cases. You might say, wow, we're spending a lot in arbitration. I didn't know we had one. Well, it's not just the arbitration cases that get paid out of that. It's our employment attorney, hopefully one who helps us avoid arbitration cases, but he's paid out of that. And then the other to point out is physical examinations. That's for pre-employment physicals and psychological testing for departments that require it, and any current employee testing, physical or psychological as necessary. So those are essentially the ones I control. And in one of the last meetings, it was requested that we discuss some of the training. And that was a really good, it's a good question to have to answer, because it's nice to answer questions when you really like the answer you get to give. I've asked that of all our departments to talk about their training. The police one I'm going to be particularly impressed with, just the amount of hours of training going to our law enforcement. But as far as myself, I did some training with our pension system to learn about legacy cost administration and planning this year. Our HR director, I actually started to run out of room. Earned sick leave deck training. There's a lot of things in the HR. It's constantly changing, and you need to stay abreast of the laws and the rules and the policies and the best practices. And she does an excellent job. She's a member of a local HR professional group that meets. She meets with them regularly. She's done, this year she went to MERS pension training. She went to AI in the workplace, employee behavior and performance evaluation training, performance documentation, HR 101, payroll and record keeping, employee onboarding, employee retention, dealing with difficult people in work, and employee onboarding for filling out I-9s and W-4s and those changes that come through there. So she's done a tremendous amount of training that I'm impressed to see when I asked for the list. So I wanted to put it on here, even though it barely fit. And I think there's some more she mentioned, but I said I'm out of room. It's very important that we develop professionally, especially our department heads and those responsible for overseeing our funds. And we're doing so definitely on the administrative side, and I'm excited to when the police get to talk about that. That is my overview. That is my introduction, sort of setting the table for the next departments that come up, and as we move forward. And before I move on to invite the police up, I welcome any questions from council.
Council have any questions?
I do.
Councilmember Karafotis.
Just so everybody knows exactly what you're talking about why won't we be funding the pension in 2036?
So once a pension reaches 100% funded, the best part about it is the money it makes by being in the market pays for your pension system. So one of the reasons I asked MERS, like, hey, how do I get there, is because I know what happens when you do. All of a sudden, you're going to free up a lot of money we have to pay into the system just to make ends meet and to prepare for the future. The system begins to take care of itself. 100% funded pension system, which we've had over 30 years ago here. You don't have to contribute as a city because the fund makes money for itself, and that's what we're working towards. And it was really exciting to see those numbers come in and see, there is an end. There is a light at the end of the tunnel. We are moving that direction. Would I still want to advocate for adding more funds to get there faster? Yes, because the sooner we're there, the more that money's making money for us, the less our citizens' tax dollars have to go towards that, and more it can go towards other city services. But kudos to those who are here in 2008, 2009, 2010, who put both the OPEB, which was a hard decision, not an easy thing to do, the retiree health care and the pension system stuff in motion over those years, because, we can see it now, and we're headed there. Just got to be disciplined until we get there.
Okay, a couple more. No retirement health care for employees hired after 2009, right?
Correct.
So at some point, there's not going to be those employees that need that health care, and that's why that's going to stop, correct?
Correct.
So what happens when they need health care? After they turn, is it 62 that they go on Medicare? Or?
Currently, our retirees do not have any retirement health care benefit. I do foresee, as you see the chart go down, I would hope that the city considers at some point, especially those who work in positions who, the nature of the work wears on their bodies.
Like the police and fire?
Like the police and fire, or DPS, who,
Absolutely.
are at 3 in the morning in a ditch.
In a hole, right.
In a hole. So, trust me, as Tim Gibbons, the police chief, and the Garden City citizen person who work for, but I want them to have that benefit, at least some form of that benefit back someday. We are probably not in a financial position to immediately do so,
Sure.
But I do think when you look at that kind of chart and you look at the average population of our employees, which is rather young, given there was so much turnover the last few years with retirements and new people coming in, that there is an avenue in the next 5 to 10 years to start to consider that pretty heavily.
Okay.
So,
Then one more question. Everyone always asks me this. So our state equalized value, the numbers that you show from like 2000 and before 2008, before the crash and all that.
yes.
So we have the same amount of houses. We have just about the same amount of people. So why is this the amount that we can tax going down
That's because of
or not going up more?
Because Proposition A and Headley
Headley,
limit
okay.
it. So the thing with if it would have continued without a major crash in the real estate market, it probably would have been okay because, there would have been no big drop to have to catch back up to. The problem is state equalized value can run the race really fast, and we're the tortoise on our taxable value being drug bound by Prop A and Headley because we can't go faster than 5%.
Right.
Even if inflation's 7%, we can't go up past 5 based on the law. So it's just sort of a system that was set up, one, absolutely, you have to keep property taxes within your community reasonable, but it also set up a system where there's a giant real estate crash, you're never really going to catch back up. That blue can't catch up to the red unless the red dips back down again, and we don't want that.
We don't want that.
So,
And one more question about that. Obviously, our property taxes have increased. Everybody knows, that you have a $120,000 brick ranch, 3 bedrooms with a basement. Our taxes are way different than they were even 10 years ago.
yes.
So, I mean, I've always talked about our goal is to increase our population
Absolutely.
so that we get more federal and state funding, but also by ways of getting that, it's getting more housing. And in my opinion, more housing equals higher taxable than getting apartments. Is that about right?
I would say it's a little more complicated because, let's say, and this is no direction, this isn't a speaking on planning or anything like that,
Yeah.
but let's say a major development comes in and it develops on pieces of land that are currently undeveloped or new. The property tax and our ability to tax it becomes uncapped.
Right, but
yeah.
for any build.
For any build,
Right.
yes. And so, I guess I can't make a one-for-one comparison because, if we're talking about a major apartment complex on a smaller piece of land that goes way up in the air, is that going to produce a higher taxable value? Yeah. But does that have other effects to the community that may be harmful to the rest of the property value? Maybe,
I'm just
So-
comparing like a 10-unit apartment complex to 2 houses. The 2 houses actually is uncapped, brand new, selling at $300,000. It seems to be pretty comparable for better results.
Yeah, at the end of the day, it just comes back to the value of the thing you build on that piece of property. And but at the same time, I always go back to a decision that was made a long time ago in the city of Garden City before any of us were around was to not move Wonderland Mall to Ford and Middlebelt. And it was because we wanted a small bedroom community. And that was a philosophy that has done us very well over a long period of time as commercial districts come and go. Small residential homes provide a level of stability for taxation that's quite impressive, and it's stood the test of time. So I think it's always about balancing. You want to develop pieces of land that fit within your community plan that maximize the value of that community. So,
Thank you.
no problem.
Okay, further questions from the table? Okay, do you need a minute, Zach? Take a minute to get ready for the next department head. All set? All set? Okay, at this time, bring up our police chief, Mr. Bob Arnowski.
Well, I follow the chief once again, a retired Chief Gibbons. Thank you for the introduction there with the segue on training. I'll get started right away. So I'm here to present the police department for 2025, 2026. What do we do and where do we want to go? Whoop. All right, so As everybody's aware, I think we cover this quite a bit at the police department. We really practice the quality of life. We think that the quality of life that we can help bring to the city is very important and something that we do well. Where we do that is through the crime and safety. We've created the different crime resource officers to address these individually and as a whole with patrol. We also have strengthened our code enforcement with the rental and vacant property people, as well as an extra officer to handle the nuisance and abatement stuff like those issues. I put this slide up here, though, because the other week when council was up here talking about the budget, they talked about quality of life for the employees. And I thought it was nice to hear that not only do we preach quality of life for the people in the city, but it was nice to get that back from council, and that it was more than just we're employees, but that you also felt a need to express that you also appreciate our quality of life that we have at the police station, fire department, and everywhere else. So I want to start with that and say thank you for recognizing that. One thing I did find when I was doing some research is community policing has really always been around with the police department. And in the 1970s, I found a blurb that the police unions were sponsoring different elementary schools to attend the Shrine Circus. And in 1970, they bought 150 students and 25 parents tickets to go to the Shrine Circus along with the police officers. I'm not making any assumptions that anybody went there or anything like that, but I just thought that was really cool to hear way back in the day that they were still had quality interactions like that. So I wanted to just highlight that, 1970s. I'm not sure why I'm on the 1970s, but we shall see some more. So 25, 24, 25, we did reduce crime a little bit. Not too much, but enough, it went down. So 2024, 2023, you could kind of see where they plateaued. 2025, we were able to knock it down. I think that had something to do with, we just had a lot more visibility in our patrols. We had brought back the traffic officers, so we were out there more. They saw police sirens, police lights. And that may have drove that down a little bit. We will wait and see some more. And also, I checked, and I will say that crime nationwide has been reduced too. So we are following a trend across the nation in reduction in crime. This is just a quick overview of how we're organized there. We have the chief of police, then we have the patrol division, a little play on words there because we have the patrol operations and the community resource underneath that division. And then the investigation and code enforcement division are over on the other side of the house and work out of there. To expand on that a little bit for you, we have the patrol department, which operates with the community resource officers. We have the investigations, which is responsible for the Detective Bureau and our task force officers when we have them. We currently don't have any, but we are still receiving forfeiture monies from when they were in the office working. So those will continue to trickle in as they get through their process for us. So there is a little legacy, I guess you could call it, there with them, and hopefully we'll get back to where we can put people back and continue that flow. I'll talk to that about a little bit later. And then we have records and code enforcement, which is our unsworn employees of the department. And they work there, they do the code enforcement, records, training and certification, tracking, stuff like that. So that's a quick overview of that. Currently, we're budgeted at 33 sworn police officers, and we'll probably stay there for the next budget year too. That equals about 1.27 per 1,000 residents, which isn't too bad looking at the national average. We're still within the bounds there. We have 5 full-time civilian employees, the records clerk, 3 code enforcement officers, and 1 executive administrative assistant. Underneath code enforcement, you have 1 code enforcement officer, the animal control officer is underneath that too, and then the rental and vacant property officer is underneath that house too. We have 1 part-time code enforcement clerk / officer. That person answers the phones and is the person you probably talk to when you call the ordinance department. They're very good at their job. It would be nice to give him a few more hours, but we shall see. Traditionally, the road patrol work is supplemented by the community resource officers who address quality of life issues such as traffic issues enforcement, community engagement and communication, school liaison, juvenile issues, court liaison, jail management, mental health, and crisis intervention. So the importance of our community involvement is it builds trust. And when you build trust, it creates a better platform to share information and to actually get communication going with people. And I use it, it's probably not the best analogy, but I use it like going to a restaurant and you get a waiter or waitress that serves you, and you go back and you start to develop a relationship, and you go back because you talk to them and you think that they're nice people and you enjoy yourself, and as you talk more, you share more information about things, and so on and so forth. It's the same thing. That's what we're trying to do at the police department, is build that trust so that we can share information back and forth both ways. And if we just have to break it down through more interactions. And once you get to that point, then we can work on solving the problem because we have that trust issue going on. And if we get that working, we increase safety for everybody in the community, for ourselves and everybody else. So it's a process, but we work on that every single day. One of the places where that, I think, shows the fastest is through traffic enforcement. Our community engagement and education allows us to increase our patrols where there's an issue. If we have the people trust us to tell us, hey, we have speeders here, we have speeders there, people are running red lights, we can respond to that and try to solve that problem by increasing our patrol coverage. We can also do education through our social media. We did that through Operation Safe Stop, the bus, the bus stop program that we've done for the last 2 years, where we let people know, hey, you see a bus, the red lights come out, you got to stop. We're going to have officers out there. We're going to enforce this. We also use the data-driven policing to check for hotspots in the areas and then increase our patrols there. One thing with the traffic officer that we put in probably about August of last year, I didn't realize that the west side of the city has the most speeding problems, or the most violations anyways, because that's where we're focused right now, is over Farmington, Vinoy, and it just seems like every hour I'm hearing them calling out traffic over there. Had we not done a survey and had a traffic car out there, we probably would overlook it because nobody's calling us to say, hey, there's speeders going on, or there's somebody running the stop sign or the red light of Vinoy and Marquette. So it was an interesting thing that came out of this fact of having the traffic officer and finding out where our real spots are. We know Middle Belt Block because we see it. We don't necessarily see things further away, and we found that out. So I look at it as a positive, and we're over there enforcing it in case anybody wants to know. So community resources, this was another area I wanted to talk about, is we know, because we talk about it all the time, we have community resource office and we have community resource officers. But we also have programs, and we just started, I think December, January, we had a few officers come up and talk about programs that they're in charge of. And I'd like to continue that throughout the year, but just to give a quick overview, we have the RAD training, which we're sponsoring the class next month, I think was April starts, which is for women, and it's a self-defense and empowerment type training. The Citizens Academy, everybody's familiar with that. But we also offer ALICE training, which may get lost in the mix, but that's for schools and government buildings. And we have trained officers that will come in and instruct, lecture on how to protect yourself if there's an active violence situation that shows up. We also, over the last year, have started to train with the churches underneath the CRAS training, which I thought was really important. And it's nice to see that our officers are now interacting with some of the churches in the community and establishing that relationship. Two things that are coming up this year, fingers crossed, is we will have 2 certified crime prevention specialists. And what that is that's a certification for a police officer that's trained to proactively reduce crime through community engagement, environmental design, and risk assessment. So in easier terms, they're basically going to class to learn how to come out and do a survey for a business, a church, a school, a residence, on how you can make your environment safer. I think that'll be a great program once we get them certified and they go out there and do it. We've done a couple test runs with some businesses in the city, offered some advice on some breaking and enterings and stuff like that. When this gets running, we should be able to do a lot more and make the city a little bit safer. The second thing is a salvage vehicle inspector, which I didn't know was even offered to local police officers. I always thought it was an MSP thing, but they're offering it this year, and we have a couple officers that are interested in it. And this one is basically our officers would be trained to be salvage vehicle inspectors, and what they would do is they would go out to some of these body shops that rebuild vehicles or formerly wrecked vehicles, and they're the ones that inspect it to make sure that they've complied with all the laws and everything else on how to rebuild it, and that it's roadworthy and it has legitimate parts on it. So The nice thing about that is we're allowed to charge a fee for that service, and they need to have it done, so it should work out good for us and the city if this comes to fruition. We have to see there's a lot of steps involved, but it looks like a good program for us to get into. Now, how do we pay for some of these things? We use grant funding a lot. Our community resource officers have a lot of grant funding that offset their salaries. The judicial resource officer has an MIDC grant, which funds about 65%. I'm not good with numbers, but last year we looked to recoup about $118,000 for that officer's use. And the state runs October to October. The good thing is it's October to October. The bad thing is ours is July to July, and summer, December, and keeping track of when and when. In this case, for the next year, we did get the grant approved. There was some hang-up because the state of Michigan was being a little hesitant to give out, and they wanted to reevaluate everything. But we do have funding again for another year of the judicial resource officer. The school resource officers, those are funded by the Garden City Schools. They pay us approximately $150,000 for 2, and that usually comes in around June or July for that payment. So those are funded partially. The task force officers that we have, we don't have anybody filling it right now. Those also had some grant funding. For instance, the Southeast Michigan Motor Crimes Association officer would be 80% funded when we put somebody in them. Currently it's vacant. The DEA task force officers, their overtime was funded. That's also currently vacant. The state of Michigan, I think I mentioned it before, or you may or may not know, created grants so that we can send police academy recruits, and the state of Michigan will offset their salary costs for us. We get $20,000 per recruit. Last year we sent 2 recruits. The first recruit, easy peasy, there was money, they got the $20,000. The second recruit was at the end of the year in the later academy. There was no money left. We didn't think we were going to get any, but then they came through for us and said, hey, here's your money for this recruit too. So it worked out good. I did a little more further research, and it sounds like even though monies may get used, people drop out of academies, unfortunately. That money goes back into the pool, which allowed us to be able to pay for that one officer. Currently, we have 3 officers in the Schoolcraft Academy. They all qualify for the grant, and we should be getting the money when they graduate to reimburse us for their costs. We've also always had a bulletproof vest grant. That pays 50% of the vest for each officer. Currently, there's a $1,900 in it. We've applied for reimbursement for 8 more vests, so we've applied for this year's budget bulletproof vest grant. You know, we try, because we have the grant and everything, we try to replace everybody's vest every 5 years. That's when the warranty runs out on the vest. So every 5 years, we're flipping vests out for the officers. And so this is just a continuing, it just goes on and on. We get the grants, we use the grant up, we get the grant, we apply for more. So the Axon grant for the body cams, the car cameras, we've got 1 year left on that grant. There's a balance of $32,000 to offset this year's cost. We've been checking on it. The Department of Justice apparently is holding up all of the grants for this matter. So we just keep checking and checking, waiting for it to show up. I don't have a ruling why or anything they're reevaluating it. They're just holding on to the money for now. So we were checking because we wanted to reapply for another grant, but they're like, well, you can't reapply yet because you don't know where this grant is. So sometimes it's a headache. The newest one is the state funding for the continuing professional education of police officers. This came in 3 years ago. They finally decided to give us some money to be able to tell us what we had to train our officers on. The first year was $500, the second year was $1,000, and this year it was $1,000. The good bad is I'm very grateful that they give us $1,000 to train our officers. It's just the timing of when they count our officers that matters. So we received $32,000 this year because at the time they counted, we had 32 officers on the books. So it's just a matter of making sure that we don't have 25 or 26 when we really have 33. So that was nice to see. That comes in. We have to use that for their education. We apply throughout the year for MIRMA grants to offset some different things. Lately, we've been using, well, not lately, we've always been using it, but lately it seems like we're doing more leadership classes, which MIRMA puts out grants for, and some other trainings that are coming up, we also were able to get grants for. It's not a huge offset, but it's about a 75% offset, so we'll get back $2,000 to $2,500 for the trainings, which isn't bad. And then currently, we have some outstanding grants. We were trying to get a Office of Highway Safety. Anyways, the Office of Highway Safety grant, we submitted for 2. They're basically, if we can get them, they're for distracted and hazardous driving details. They would pay for the officers' overtime for us to put officers on the street on overtime. We would get reimbursed for it that way. One is directly through us that we put in for. The other one is a county-wide type grant program. So we would be running it through the county, who runs it through the state, it comes to us. Just different steps you take. There also is another one that we're working on, which is going to be like a county grant too. It's called a critical mapping grant. And basically that would be a $25,000 grant to map the schools, the churches, and government buildings. We've already done it once in 2023. They came in and mapped all the buildings. This would be to update to the next latest thing, just to make sure that our maps stay up to date. So those are what we're working on for grants, and those are the grants that we have. Want to talk a little bit about federal asset forfeiture, otherwise known as Equitable Sharing Program through the Department of Justice and the Treasury. So what is it? The federal program is allowing state, local, and tribal law enforcement agencies to receive a share of proceeds from assets seized or forfeited in federal cases such as drug trafficking, money laundering, or fraud. We had the 2 federal task force officers. They worked out of the DEA, so most of their cases were the drug trafficking. I do believe they might have one money laundering, but the majority were drug trafficking. It's administered by the Department of Justice, the Assets Forfeiture Fund, and the Treasury Forfeiture Fund. The reason there's 2 is the Department of Justice has certain, like the DEA, FBI groups that fall underneath them, and the Treasury Department has different groups like the IRS and Secret Service, which fall under them. So our officers, again, we stick them into the DEA task force, so we fall underneath DOJ. The reason that they do it is they want to punish or deter crime by depriving criminals of proceeds and tools, disrupt criminal enterprises, enhance cooperation between federal, state, local, and tribal agencies. They put in here a few times, it's a supplement. It's not to replace agency budgets with shared funds. And how the sharing works is the agencies participating in joint investigations can request up to 80% of net proceeds based on contribution level. Payments are typically in cash, not directly property transfers since 2023 policy change. So our task force officers will go out, they work, they're good workers. They would get onto a case. The case would obviously involve some sort of drug nexus. They wind up seizing funds, house, cars, whatever it may be. As part of that investigation, they can then turn in paperwork to request a percentage of the proceeds after all the court process is done. They put down 80% on their paperwork. I have yet to see one come in over 20% of part of the proceeds. Our usual is about 10% of whatever is seized. So if we seize $1,600, we get $160, something like that. That's the easy math. So the requirements for permissible uses, law enforcement purposes only, equipment, training, technology, task force, community programs, officer safety, must supplement, not replace existing budgets, requirements and oversight. Agency must register via e-share portal, which is what we use to communicate with them, maintain SAM government registration, which we already do. The annual equitable sharing agreement and certifications required. They make you watch a video. We're subject to audits by them because they consider it as federal financial assistance, and they can end it at any time too. So it's always on them. And then in 2025, I found an interesting fact that there was $602 million shared throughout the nation with state and local agencies from the DOJ data. So there's that. And then moving back to the continuing professional education, which I think is a great thing and it's really important. However, prior to them deciding that we had to do this, we were already kind of big on training. So as you'll see, what the program is they give us $1,000 to use for the officer's expense, and in return, they tell us what 24 hours of their yearly training has to be. It's mandated. They pick a topic, and you have to do 8 hours of mandatory training on that, and then we can pick 16 hours of elected training as long as it's a course approved by MCOLS to use CPE funds on. So once you get through the 24 hours, you're good to go. Lieutenant Hall was here earlier. I was going to confirm with him, but in January, we already took care of the 8-hour mandatory training for our department. We have like 2 officers that we still have to do because they missed it, but we already kicked that off the books. For the year, the budget year last year, GCPD officers had 18,236 hours of training. That's not anybody that was in the academy. That's just the hours of training that the officers took. And that's about 600 hours per officer. So as you can see, we take training pretty serious at the police department. And having such a young department, I think it's just so important that they get so much different training and so many different people to see and network with and talk to. The courses range from leadership schools, instructor schools, certification, recertification courses, in-house training. You know, we do de-escalation in-house. We get our legal updates in-house, tasers, firearms, duty to intervene, defensive tactics. Those are all yearly trainings that we do in-house. The K-9 officer, in addition to all the training he does for us, he also winds up training 32 to 40 hours a month strictly with his K-9 at the K-9 Academy. And then he recertifies, him and the dog recertify every 2 years. And Officer Stanley Blue just recertified in January 2026. He's another one that I'd like to have come in here and talk to you a little bit about at a council meeting on what's required to recertify. I think you'll find it interesting, so we'll keep that in mind. And then we also have officers that are on the Western Wayne Mobile Field Force. They train quarterly, so 4 times a year they get together with the team and they train. I believe as they move up the levels and become more supervisors within that program, they meet more often and do more table talking and training and planning and stuff like that. But currently where our officers are at, they go once a quarter. Then we also have a Western Wayne Crisis Negotiation Team member, and they meet once a month and do their training. So that pretty much covers the training at the PD. There's other trainings I'm sure I missed, but that's the majority of them. So then what did we accomplish in 2025-26? So we placed 2 officers through the regional police academies. We were reimbursed for their salaries, $20,000 each officer. We sent 3 command officers to different leadership schools. Those were grant funded. We received 75% of their funds back. We sent 1 lieutenant. He went to the staff and command school, and now all the lieutenants have attended the staff and command schools. So all 3 lieutenants are there. We have the sergeant currently attending SHIELD leadership course, which is a frontline, first line supervisor course. They meet 2 times a month for 10 months. I don't know how many hours that works out to be, but so it's a very extensive program. And then we have 1 that still needs to go, and after that, all of our sergeants will have attended a leadership course also. So everybody in command will have had at least 1 leadership course under their belt, and as they move up to lieutenant, we would want to get them into the staff and command. We're fortunate that 1 of our sergeants already has staff and command, so he's ahead of the game. Then we continued to update the HVAC system at GCPD. The only reason I put that in here is because we noticed that there's been quite a decline in our cost per usage since the new system came online. So it's worth noting that updating this equipment is saving the city a lot of money. It's a big expenditure, but we're getting paid back on it. Then, of course, the police department answered 19,815 calls for service, works out to 54 per day, and it was 803 more than last year, and we did it with less is more staffing. So we also had, in the ordinance department, 2,729 ordinance enforcement actions. Just as an interesting fact, 166 of them were trash/garbage related, and there was 511 animal complaints. One thing that I'm proud of is we acquired newer tasers for no monetary cost. One of our lieutenants was able to use networking to find out that another department was getting new tasers, and what were they going to do with their old tasers? So he was able to work out a deal where we got them for no cost. We were able to outfit the entire department with new tasers, more updated, more new technology. Even though it's old, it's better than the ones we had. And then I think I may have said something, but the first week that they were out there, God bless, we had an incident where the officer had to use his taser. The first darting missed, but because the new tasers have two, which our old ones didn't, he was able to deploy the second darts, which took effect and neutralized the suspect who had a knife and was charging at him. So it was like, thank heavens we got it, but somebody was looking out for us to get us that stuff. Then drone-wise, we finally were able to receive our certificate of waiver authorization, which is called a COA. What that allows us to do is, prior to that, we were always sending officers out to FAA Part 107 training to become pilots so that they could fly the drone. This now allows us to do it in-house and make everybody authorized to fly the drone. We also received our Beyond Visual Line of Sight waiver. So prior to that, we used to have a pilot in the station to launch the drone, to fly the drone, and then somebody watching the drone fly. Now, the pilot can just fly the drone. This is huge for the drone as first responder program because it'll just let us accelerate how much use we get out of it. So we're glad to get that. We also assigned a traffic resource officer to the police department's community resource office. We hired an animal control officer. I didn't put in here, but we also updated our canine patrol vehicle because, again, one of our, the canine officer was able to network through the Canine Academy with a department that was getting rid of a cage that wouldn't fit their new car, but it would fit our older car. So again, no money put out, but we were able to get a newer cage. We had to buy a few parts for it or whatever, but it saved us a big cost of money to use this networking and to find places to get these things for free. So we also updated that, which was nice because that car that he was driving, we had it down. In 2025, the police department responded to 809 crashes, taking 635 crash reports. 558 crash reports were taken in 2024, so we did have a 14% increase, which I'm a little disappointed in overall, as I was hoping to make that number drop. We'll keep working on it. Where I am excited and proud of is the fact that we reduced our injury accidents from 40 in 2024 to 28 in this current year. So we did a 30% reduction in injury accidents. 809 total crash calls equals 2.2 crashes per day. What I will tell you about the 809, I put it in there because that's how it showed up, but that encompasses all of our border streets that may or may not have been our accidents. So if it happened at Cherry Hill and Inkster, it may have been Dearborn Heights or Inkster, but it goes into our run as our accident. Or if we went into Westland for a little bit, it could show up that way too. Which I'm thinking may have been what skewed it. Also, with our traffic resource officer, he's part of the Western Wayne crash team. So they respond to serious accidents. And so he would be called out, say there was a fatal accident in another city. He would respond to their scene and work the scene as part of the Western Wayne crash team for the city that had the problem. So that may also be where we're getting some numbers jump up. But overall, we had 3,700-ish violations written, which is an increase from 2024, which was 2426 in 2024. I only put that out there because we did start the traffic car and we could see where we're increasing our production. And hopefully, since we got in the last half of the year, having them out there a full year, we hopefully will see a reduction in the accidents next year with the enforcement that we're taking today. We have 33 sworn police officers with 1 traffic resource officer. What I will say is we have the 33. There's 3 currently in the academy. We got them in January, so prior to that, we were at 30. And then in 25, 26, excuse me, we had 2 officers on extended medical. We had 4 officers retire or resign. So, you know, we had 33 scheduled on the books. We probably spent the year running anywhere from 25 to 30 officers out there. You can see the amount of work that they did with that 19,000 calls for service. Future considerations, I would like to maintain the body cameras, the in-car cameras, and the tasers. As it is, we're already about halfway through our body cameras and in-car cameras, so we know that that's going to be coming up shortly, that we may have to replace a few. Tasers, again, we just got new used for us, so I'd still like to see us consider getting tasers in the near future, just to update and make sure that we don't have the same problem where everything seems to be coming to this technical end-of-life thing, and then we get stuck right at the end of life, and we have no, so. I'd like to expand the drone as first responder program. Technology has grown. We were one of the first departments to get the dock and the drone and start the DFR here, and it's the greatest thing. But now I'm being told by the city manager that, you know, that now you just push a button and the drone flies itself to where it's got to go, and you don't need the pilots and everything we've been doing for the last 6, 7 years. So I'd really like if the possibility to upgrade to that, so that we can really expand on our drone as first responder and enjoy the benefits of it for the city. So the creation of the Administrative Hearing Board or the Blight Court, if that comes through, I would really like to hire some more part-time code enforcement officers to take advantage of the court. It sounds maybe strange, but the fact that the court's going to be new and not have a big docket like the current court has, we should be able to get more officers and more cases in there. I just need more officers to get the cases. So I'd like to get a couple more part-time officers so that we can run a lot more high-grass weeds and blight issues through there. We will continue to train officers. We will focus on the officers' goals, continue to provide legal updates, leadership training, new technology, operations, new techniques, new ways of thinking. I would also like to purchase new police patrol vehicles. 2024, we were able to have 14 patrol vehicles, including the K-9 car. And if you remember, 2023 is when we had the issue, and we pretty much ran out of patrol cars. I think I had 5 working patrol cars at one point. We came before council. We asked for more cars. Council was generous and gave us 4 cars to buy at that point. So that brought our fleet up, thankfully. So we got up to the 14. In 2025, I took out of service a 2013 and a 2015 Ford Tauruses. One of those was the K-9 car. Our K-9 officer transports the K-9, which is an asset to the city and a resource, along with the personnel. I can't have him driving that car and it's not trustworthy enough to start and leaves him stranded somewhere, because he's one of the few officers that will be leaving the city on his own time to go assist another city. And if he can't get there, or if he gets halfway there and his car breaks down, I have him and the dog stranded. And the car was getting to that point where it was in the shop more than it was on the street. And so we just downed it, and we were able to work out the deal with the other city to get the new cage and put the car in. But if we hadn't done that, I'm not sure what we would have done except come to council and ask for money to buy a car, because that's where we were getting with that car. We don't have a backup for the K-9, so it's something we have to look at too. And then the 2015 Taurus was a similar incident. It was the school car, so the school resource officers would drive that car. I guess if you want to get rid of a car, have the chief drive your car for a day, because I took it to one of the events and I couldn't get in the car because I couldn't get my key to unlock the door. I had to fidget with it for 5 minutes and just hit the right spot, and then it was slow to start and stuff like that. And again, I can't have a car like that out there where we need to immediately be able to go if there's a reason to go. We can't be screwed around with trying to get the door unlocked. It's little stuff, but it's stuff like that. So we took them out of service. That then currently leaves us with 12, including the K-9 car. In the fleet, I have a 2018 Ford with, it's 119,000 miles on it, and a 2019 Ford that's got 93,000 miles on it. We keep putting money in and fixing them because it's all we have. So the 2018 Ford SUV has developed the electrical gremlins, but we just keep trying to fix it, and so we get a couple days out of it. The gremlin comes back. We go somewhere else to try to get it fixed. The gremlin comes back. The Ford truck, which is the pickup truck, we just bought a new computer for it because, again, we're just trying to keep it running. It needed a computer. I don't have a spare. I can't take it out of service, so it forces me to spend money to get it out there on the road. So what I'm looking at is basically, at any one time, I could have 9 officers that need a car on day shift. I have 2 SROs. I'd like to do 2 traffic officers. I currently have 1, but if I get up to 2, I need cars for them. The JRO needs a car, and then the 3 patrolmen that are going to come respond to your door, and the supervisor. So that's my total potential need is 9 at one time. I have 12, but that doesn't guarantee me 12 brand new spanking cars that everybody works, right? I have 12, and I'm lucky if 2 or 3 aren't in the shop every week getting something fixed on them. So I would like to get some new patrol cars, just to be able to get to that 14 number again. and feel more comfortable that we can make it through the season without running out of cars. It's not a comfortable feeling to run out of a car. So I'm going to conclude now. And basically, in conclusion, I would say that effective traffic enforcement enhances safety within the community. The use of technology improves the efficiency. And then the community itself, their involvement is key to everything that we do. Without the community involvement, we have nowhere to go. And we will continually monitor and improve and adapt as needed. And you can see it's just a circle. We just, so, thank you very much.
Thank you, Chief. Council, do you have questions for Police Chief?
I have a question.
Councilmember Dole.
So there were several times in the presentations where you mentioned doing more with less. How did that equate to overtime this past year?
Doing more with less?
Doing more with less. So you had 803 additional calls from the year
Oh, yeah.
prior. So what are we looking at? We have fewer officers, but they're doing more work.
Yeah. I mean, there's no other way around it. We have the same officers like you see every single day. It's just, we filled it as needed. We came up with the traffic resource officer position, which is a need. It did reduce some of our overtime. It's just the way that we staffed the shift, our staffing, knocked it down a little bit. But we can't plan for the people that go off on being injured and create another hole. So that just seemed to cause some overtime. We had a lot of people working overtime. It's all you can do. I'm not sure if I'm following your question because,
I think what she was asking is, our overtime's probably way up there because we're doing more with less people. So our overtime costs are probably exaggerated
Oh, sure.
immensely. I believe that's what you're getting at, right?
Basically, yeah. And, is it putting, I have to worry a little bit about the additional stress that it's putting on our officers.
oh, that's justified. I mean, we
So-
try to do as much as we can to rotate them off, but there's a contract that says this is how you fill the overtime. And we have to respond when people call, so.
Okay. Just wondering how it equated to that, because, yeah, you are doing a lot more work. Can you tell us what the CRACE is an acronym for?
I
C-R-A-S-E?
wish I could, but
Okay,
I didn't write that one down.
okay, I'll look it up.
So, but
But ultimately, it's just for preparing our community churches for an active shooter or a violent event.
Oh, so it's Alice.
It's like Alice,
For
but
church.
it's
Yeah,
directed
yeah.
specifically for religious organizations, church gatherings and stuff, because
Yeah.
really Alice has traditionally been one that's sort of built around schools.
And actually, my head chief here runs it, so maybe he knows the acronym for the,
Yes, it's civilian response to active shooter violence, which is focusing on the churches.
We love our acronyms in law enforcement.
Yeah,
Yeah.
okay. And last, I'm just curious, how much does the academy cost? So we're getting reimbursed $20,000 per officer, but how much are we paying out?
the 20,000 is for their salaries. The academy itself costs us about $6,100, and that 20,000 doesn't reimburse the $6,100 tuition fee. It just
Pays for the- pays the
reimburses the time of the officer.
Bigger are the costs. so.
Okay.
So their salaries is what it covers.
And are they required to stay with us a certain amount of time or return
They've changed the agreement. It's not agreement with us, it's agreement with the state. And they have something in there, some sort of clause in there with the state that if they do something, they have to pay the money back.
Mayor,
Councilmember Karafotis.
I have a lot of questions. One major thing that I noticed when you were talking the whole time is that we have vacancies in the task force. Why is that?
It's just staffing right now. We have the 3 officers in the academy, which will put us at 33, and then we should have enough to distribute people to the task force and bureaus.
Okay.
But currently, it's just the staffing.
Okay, so we have 33 total, but 3 of them are in the academy. When are they coming out of the academy?
The academy graduation is May.
Okay.
They will then hit the field training program, which is another 4 months, and then they would start their solo patrol after that. So May, you're looking at September, they all may become full solo patrol officers.
Okay, so, and right now out of that 30, how many are patrol officers?
I would say you ask trick questions. all 30 of them are patrol officers. We have one officer still on FDO. We have 2 officers on FDO.
Okay,
So, but
I'll make it a little bit simpler then. How many patrol officers are on every shift? How many patrol officers are on each shift?
we have 3 patrol on days A, we have 3 patrol on days B, and then we have 4 patrol on mids A, and we have 3 patrol on mids B.
And then if needed, there's officers, lieutenants and sergeants and stuff that are inside that can come out during that shift. How many is that during a shift?
On day shift, you would have, all of your staff is there, so you have 2 lieutenants and a sergeant, and then on midnights, you have a sergeant, midnights, you have a sergeant. So on midnights is when we're we have 1 sergeant.
Okay. Do you think as a department we're top heavy or patrol heavy?
I think we're pretty balanced right now.
There's no more need for officers or more patrol or vice versa?
No, I don't, obviously, you always want more and more and more. but
Sure.
I think it's a pretty good balance right now.
Okay. Councilwoman Dold's asking about the overtime. It's not more cost-effective to hire another officer at a regular rate than paying out this much in overtime? So if we pay...
No, I mean, this question has been around since I began my career, and the way it's always been explained to me is your overtime is always less than what it would cost you for a full-time employee.
And I can delve a little further into answer that question. So, you know, having worked here, starting out when there was 47, 48 officers all the way till now, and ebbed and flowed to where we had less than 30 for, I think, between 2010 and 2000, probably early 20. We operated with 30 budgeted, which really, when you budget 30, you live at about 27, 28, 29. Overtime was always a consistent part of a Garden State law enforcement officer's life. Mostly because, yes, the cost of hiring that new officer compared to the paying of the overtime. One, you know, when you hire an officer, as happened to the police department this year, I think it was 3, 4 officers off on significant long-term medical, you know, on or off duty cause injuries that created a staffing problem. So we always joke that I think even during my time when we were up to 36 officers over the last few years, budgeted and paid for, we were still seeing significant overtime because a lot goes into getting that officer to show up, training, staffing level, injuries, vacations, time off. It's all built in the system. These officers do have to have time to decompress, and there's a system of overtime filling that's built into the contract that divides it as equally as you possibly can amongst the officers. So it really, you know, when I started here, it was just shy of 50 in '02.
I guess I'm just looking at it, the cost. It's around $200,000 in overtime.
But it wouldn't translate to, what overtime is hours worked doing patrol divided by, it's a direct cost of an officer working at that time.
Right.
But when you employ an officer, you've got benefits, you've got pay, you've got retirement, you've got training, you've got them being there. So, you know, even though you're paying someone 2,080 hours, it doesn't translate to directly them being on the road, that work time we need. Overtime is sort of just built into the system if we're not operating 37, 38, 39 officers, which we're just not able to get to right now. But what is nice is that we're, as the chief just stated, we're hired up to 33. I referred to the light at the end of the tunnel when it comes to retirement benefits and things like that, those paying down. Well, there's a light at the end of the tunnel for staffing when those officers get out of the academy and get trained and are with us. Though there is the issue of law enforcement officers this day and age are a little more nomadic. It used to be when you hired on, you're there 25 years and that was it. They move more frequently. Our younger officers jump from the better contracts. You know, as council knows, because you've approved some contracts over the last number of years, the cost of paying public safety, both fire and police, it's a much more competitive market. You know, the city of Detroit in 1 year, I think, upped their compensation or their salary for officers $10,000 just like that. That immediately changed the market for everybody. So now everybody's moving for the best contracts. I think we'll get back to a time where everyone's settled in and working where they're going to be for a while. But during those kind of times, as we're going through right now, you hire one, you lose one sometimes. But I think keeping 33 on the books, trying to hire to that 33, maybe even if we know someone's leaving in the near future, trying to get to 34 while we know someone's leaving is the best way to operate. It keeps you the most as you possibly can. Unfortunately, trying to budget for a reduction in overtime, which I've tried, your best, your best laid plans will be upended by an officer, twisting his knee and being out for 6 months. So it's very hard to budget. Yeah, if I hire an officer, then my overtime should go down by X. It just, I've tried. We've tried to do the math. It is a little bit more of calculus than arithmetic.
Okay, not that I expect this answer this moment, but if we say on average we have $200,000 in overtime, I would like kind of a breakdown, like what it is when we hire a new officer, like what their yearly salary is versus their compensation versus their insurance versus all those things to see where it is. I'm very curious about that.
I can pretty much, a brand new officer is going to be about $120,000, $130,000.
With training and all those things.
And if you had, if you had training on it that's not reimbursed and things like, and during the course of the FTO period where they're not actually working to help you with that overtime, I'd say then it's an 8-month essentially process to get them through once they come out of the academy. So we're really looking at $130,000 and then add half of their salary for the time that they're just in training. So really, you're almost at $200,000 right there to hire the one officer, while the other officers are working the overtime waiting for that officer to get done.
Sure.
So.
But when he's done, he takes away some of the overtime
start
because
to
you
take
have that
away
extra
overtime,
guy that's
yes.
not making everybody else super tired.
Unless someone else goes to a different department for a better. It's the life we've lived lately. So.
And any idea how much money that we've gotten from the task force previously when we get sharing, revenue sharing?
We've received over $1 million in the last few years. It just takes a very long time to show up, but our officers who were assigned to those task forces in 2020, 2021, that money 3-4 years later starts to roll in droves and it's starting to
Okay,
come in.
so another source of revenue when we get where we need to be.
Absolutely.
Okay, I have a couple more. So you talked about how often they should replace their vests. How often should they replace their tasers?
Tasers?
Yeah, I mean, we got some from Romulus, and I understand that, but we got somebody else's old stuff, so I'm just curious how often we should replace them, because...
That's an apples and orange comparison. Our tasers we had were X26Ps or something. We got those back in 2011. Those were also still...
Super old.
Yeah, and they were also, prior to that, being issued as new, so like they were the greatest thing. They became end of life 3 years ago. We continued with them. So I would just go with when the manufacturer is letting us know that these are coming to the end of the life, we should look at transferring out.
Absolutely.
With the current ones that we have, which we now have the Taser 2s basically, they've already jumped 2 generations to Taser 10s.
So we need more tasers, right?
I don't think these seem to be effective right now for us. If we're doing wish list stuff, sure, we always want the newest, greatest stuff and everything else.
If they break down, are we able to repair them?
Yes, they're still repairable. And
Yeah, these
we
are
can still get new-
operable devices.
I get it. I just want to make sure our guys are safe, that's all.
Yeah.
Okay, and then a question about the mapping that you talked about and the grants for that, for if there's active shooters for the government and schools. Any idea how much that costs? Like, is that something we should build in our budget just in case we don't get that grant, that's something that we should do and keep up to date?
The grant's $25,000. I don't know what the actual cost that the company's charging. It's just going to be a wash of hands for us with the money.
I realize that,
So-
but okay, so do you think it's about 25,000?
Yeah, I don't
Okay.
think that they're doing it for a loss, and there's nobody else supplementing them other than the grant.
Okay.
I don't have my laptop to look at it. I looked at, it's just the blueprints that they then enhance with different points, like where the Knox boxes are, where's this, where's that.
Okay.
So they're going back through now and updating them. 2023 is when Garden City Schools did it. It's now 2026. I don't know if every 3 years they go back through and do it through the program or not. So it's something to keep in mind that needs to be done. But currently, we have the maps for all the schools. This is just to go back through and update and make sure that they're,
Yeah, I remember when you guys did that in '23.
yeah. So, and I don't know how much change there's going to be. It may be they're,
Little, right.
yeah. so-
Okay. And then my last thing, I think, is about the drone. I know we were all excited when we got that drone, and now we're not that far along, and there's already way better stuff out there.
Yeah.
So maybe before we buy the next drone, I don't know if some of our tech people who are in the audience right now can come up with some kind of analyzing like how much it's going to change. Like if we go and spend another $25,000, is it going to be far below what it should be in 2 years from now? Like, are they going to invent something else? So
And the current drone is serviceable.
For sure.
It's what we just run into is there's newer, greater stuff. This
Right.
drone will still last. The problem that we have is the manufacturer doesn't want to support it anymore.
that's what I'm saying.
So-
Technology moves so fast, it's hard to keep up with it. So before we spend a lot more money, maybe we hang on to this one for another 2 years when they have something else that's brand new and even better than what is available right now. And I was curious on one of your first slides, and it talked about ordinance, it said climate and pollution. What's that about?
My climate pollution?
It said climate and pollution.
I'm going to take that out.
Well, I mean, whatever our ordinance officer's doing, I mean, it said about, visual, people call and complain about something looks junky. What are they, what,
Yeah, that was the nuisance and all that stuff is what that
Yeah.
stuff was for. It was just talking about different qualities of life and pollution.
okay. Okay, that's all I
It
got.
also talks about the physical and mental part of it. It talks about parks and everything like that, too. That's not the police department. We try to make them
Okay.
safe. So we're more focused on the safety aspect of it, and the grade aspect.
Okay, I have one more thing. I'm sorry, I just noticed it. You talked about this salvage thing, and you said this is the first time you found out that it was available to the PD. My personal 2 cents, I want our policemen to be able to do police stuff, and if there's somebody else in our city that we could have doing that instead of one of our policemen, they could be better served for
Just to
fighting
understand,
crime or something.
Police officers are already required to do, by their own, VIN inspections. And
Yeah,
things
I
like that.
understand.
So,
But I'm just saying, if we're getting a grant for that, or we're getting something for that, maybe instead of having one of our guys that could be doing traffic control and bringing in more revenue, we could have someone from the building department or somebody from ordinance do that salvage thing. That's all.
Or the thing that was appealing to this was the fact that the proceeds are used to work on stolen cars and finding stolen vehicles and stuff like that. So having the officer do it while he's inspecting the car to make sure it's roadworthy, he's also checking to make sure there's no stolen parts on it, and that's not a stolen car.
And
There's
they,
a law enforcement nexus. That's the appeal.
okay. Thank you.
Thank you. Further questions from the table?
Mayor,
Councilmember King.
just a clarification on the overtime piece we were just talking about. It looks like the roughly average total comp for an officer is about $150K a year.
Yeah.
So I'm basically saying only a fraction of that would bring the overtime down, so like 50,000. It would bring the
Yeah,
overtime down by 50 grand, but you're still paying another 100.
yeah, the cost of filling enough to be able to weather all of the staffing issues you encounter throughout the year don't translate to anywhere near a one-to-one. Like, yeah, I pay $150,000 for an officer, he'll reduce my overtime. You have to multiply that by a number to get to, if you're going to get to it, you need at least 2 or 3 probably to get rid of the 150. So you've got to pay $350 to get rid of 150 or $450 to get rid of 150. And that's just off the top of my head, but
Right.
it's an issue I've investigated a ton because, the reality is for both our police and our fire, overtime does have a negative effect on you if you don't want it. But it is a reality of of the profession. It is taken into account, and what I'll say is we have a demonstrated history since 2009, 2010 of being able to operate with actually even less budgeted. But we should do everything we can to where there's opportunities to reduce the overtime and increase our staffing to do so. And that is where some of the ideas for the task force come from and the traffic officer and things like that, because they provide a certain offset to
More
the
revenue.
cost to offset the cost of that officer that allows for more officers. That's how we got up to 36 a number of years ago. There's 2 things, headwinds working against us. Of course, it's always finances, but I think we can get there. It's literally just being able to hire the officers, train them in a fast enough period, and recruit them, because it's a tough market out there. When I applied to be a police officer in 2002, I competed with 300 people. Nowadays, the average test you're competing with is around 10. So if you want a law enforcement job, now's the time to apply, because agencies are all constantly looking. I don't think if you can go on Facebook and you don't see these municipalities saying, we're hiring, it's a very fortunate agency who's not, so.
All right, thanks.
I have something to add to that, about what Dom just said. So the question wasn't about trying to get our overtime down, it's trying to get our guys so that they aren't getting wore out working overtime.
Exactly.
So that was
That's
my
what
main,
that number
that was my main point about that. And then the other thing is, you did mention about, we're trying to do more with less. And I don't think when it comes to the police and fire that should apply to them, and even DPS. There's other areas that we can do more with less, but doing that with our police and fire and our DPS is worrisome to me. And then, I want to say one other thing about that. Oh, and we talk about how difficult it is to get police officers because we have everybody just going everywhere with Detroit raising everybody wants to go there and then go to Southfield. I get that. So let's figure something out that we can attract quality officers to come here. I think we can start that by improving our police station.
Go
ahead,
a
Councilmember
couple more questions. So regarding the CIP, there was a couple items on the list for the next fiscal year. Had the cell block restoration, PD report, room restoration, prep radios, and the vehicle replacement. Kind of looking through your presentation, I'm assuming, but want to give verification, that the vehicle replacement plan and probably the radios are the top out of those four. Knowing that we probably won't have money to do all four things, would you say those would be the top priorities for
The
CIP?
radios definitely, the cars definitely. We need to be able to get to the roads, we need to be able to get to the people.
Okay.
So, and it'd be nice to get the building cleaned up, but
Well, I
priority-wise,
agree. But if in an event there's not enough money for all four,
Yeah.
just,
I think the radios are federally mandated by like October of this year, aren't they?
they are.
Yeah.
right, that's why I figured that would be one of the higher priorities. And then what you just explained regarding the K-9 vehicle and the other school resource vehicle, yeah. Another question I have, and it's more just out of probably curiosity, looking at the budget line item, there's a line item called electric police. It's actually decreased from what we had budgeted 25, 26, 40,000, and it's only 1,300. But what's that line item used for, do you know?
My understanding is that's the HVAC reduction, the electrical bill.
Oh, okay,
That's how I interpreted it. So
okay,
Our older HVAC system was really draining a lot of electricity, and is one of the impetuses behind replacing
Yeah.
that system. It has, and it's resulted in a 69% reduction of our electricity bill. It's fantastic. We were budgeting $30,000 to $40,000. We're probably going to budget 12 to 13 next year. So that's where, in my original slides, I talk about capital investments that reduce operational costs. And an HVAC system for an aged building, fantastic. And now it's nice to actually see those numbers start to play out, so.
no, agreed. And then that's all I have.
Okay, thank you. Further comments from the table?
Mayor?
Okay. Councilmember
I
Karafotis.
just have one more comment. You talk about savings for updates. I did see a lot of residents have mentioned to me their new streetlights are going in. So
Fantastic.
that's great because
Yep.
newer streetlights mean less electric bills.
Yes.
Okay. I think that's it, Chief. Thank you very much for your
Thank you.
presentation. Give Zach a minute to get set up for fire department.
Yeah, fire's in the packet. That was an updated one we had seen.
Just there. Thank you, Zach.
Okay, all set. All right, at this time, we'll bring up Fire Chief Randy Keene. Sir?
Good evening, Mayor and Council. To follow along, the police department here can kind of go through some things with the department. We'll start out with our incident count. As you can see here, this is historically over the last 10 years. We saw a steady incline with the exception of 2020, which was COVID, which a lot of people didn't want to go to the hospital for. Peaking in 2023 at 4,200, you saw a jump of 450 runs there. We've come down a little bit on that, but we're still above where we were in 2022. So we saw that flattening a little bit, but the trend is still up, obviously, since 2016 to the tune of about 20%. So you'll see that. So this is obviously from the fire suppression side, the fire and EMS. I'll break it down a little bit here on the next slide. So here's the breakdown of last year's calls. Now, I realize the budget runs from July to June. We pull our numbers for the year. So this is actually January through December. So it's a little bit different, obviously, than the budget year. But as you'll see, Here's the breakdown of those 3,848 runs. Around 2,600 of them were EMS runs. And then you'll see the other ones that are delineated up below. Each one has a code there, which you'll see the 400, 500, 600. Part of that is when we enter those into the system, they're uploaded to the federal government for tracking, for mapping, things like that, so we can determine what kind of runs we have and how many we have. So as you can see that, obviously the largest majority is the rescue runs. And then above that, you see the percentages. 68% is EMS, and then some of the other things fall in there with smaller percentages. Some of the stuff like service calls, maybe like lift assists, assisting residents with other items like in their house or things of that nature, or in and out of their vehicles. The 400 hazards are wires down or gas leaks, things of those natures. Obviously, we know what the fires are in the 100. The 600s, good intent calls, those can be, 600, 700s can be alarms. Some of them are false alarms or we're dispatched when we get there, there's no run. So those are where those come in. And then obviously, like I said, the percentage breakdowns. So this is the fire suppression side of it. Then we have our fire marshal, John Smith. What is his job? He does annual fire inspections for businesses. We do every business every year. It's compliance for the community is what we're looking for. It's not meant to be punitive. It's meant to be create a safe environment for both the residents and the businesses. And then at the bottom there, you see what we're working on currently, introducing the multifamily residential inspections. I know we're in talks with that, and that's coming here in the future. Part of his job also is ordinance, so it's plan reviews and CVO inspections to verify that these businesses are safe from a design aspect as well as prior to them opening up the business. And then the other part which he's in charge of is public education, going to schools, going to community groups, to social clubs, things like that, and he presents educational material or advice, or one of the big things I know he does is the smoke detectors. So that's a huge, huge thing for us. It's state funded. He goes into these homes and puts smoke detectors in based upon need. So kind of what he's done this year, or this past year, so 434 business inspections. Now that is just the primary inspection. If there's violations or anything that needs to be followed up on, there's also follow-up inspections to those. So that's every business in the city with a few exceptions. So there are assemblies, some assemblies which we do not have jurisdiction over, the state does. Hospitals, schools, daycares, those sort of businesses, we can get into them, but we don't have the jurisdiction over them, the state does. Usually they're very compliant, they want to make it as safe as they can, but we couldn't force them, I guess, but we do go out there just to make sure it's safe. The other part of that is with those inspections is we do a pre-plan. So the fire marshal creates a document with the building itself, so we know where the gas shutoff is, the electrical, any Knox boxes, any access problems. We put that into our program, so when we're dispatched, it's readily available for our guys when they get there. It's just a document they click on, it opens up, and it shows them all this information. So that's another benefit to it. And then you can see as we go down, he does the CVO inspection, 78, plan reviews, and then the smoke alarms installed. It's 396 he did last year. So we have that ebbs and flows. Number one. Number two, it also depends on what's available from the state. There's $1 million available annually from the state. So whenever they purchase whatever they can for that, when they run out, then the supply ends until the next year. Happy to say that that was renewed for the upcoming budget. So that program will continue. Going into a little bit of the finances for the fire department. You can see the historical finances for the expenditures that we have here. There has been some increases over the last 4 years. And then you can see for this year, that's our projected is 4.817. That's projected based on where we're at right now. With some exclusion there, I know that there's some money for the CIP for the station it's in there right now we'll muddy that water a little bit. We can discuss that a little bit further down here. So where do we get our funding from? So our funding comes from the public safety millage, which was discussed with the police department as well. The tax revenue, and then any revenues generated from EMS and fire prevention. I'll go through those a little bit, break down where we get some of that revenue beyond the millage and the tax revenue. The public safety millage equates to approximately 20% of our budget. So here is the EMS revenue. As you can see, this has steadily increased over the years. 1, through run volume, 2, through training our guys with the documentation and working well with our billing company. So our rates are up. We're in the collection rate of about 95% right now. We were 2 years ago about 85%. So there's some trainings and stuff that come out. Like I said, we train the guys along with working with them. Some of that has to do with the Medicare requirements and the insurance requirements as well. You'll see a little bit of a large spike there in 24, 25 after a dip in 23. We had some software issues in 23 that caused a couple months of the bills weren't being automatically sent in. So we had a little bit of a lag on the collection part of that, number one. Number two, this does ebb and flows as well. Just because you're billed at a certain time doesn't mean the money comes in at that month. It might come in a few months later. So the expected budget for this year is about $700,000, and it should be around there next year or just above that. Fire prevention revenues. This is something that we've obviously increased over the last couple years by making sure that we do every business for safety, number one, in compliance, but also you can see the revenue, the big jump from 23 to 24. In 24, 25, we made a concerted effort to make sure that every business was done in that year. Now we use a system that it's automatically generated to schedule, send out notifications to schedule it, not to schedule it itself. We still do that, but the notifications automatically go out to the businesses and alert them that they're due for their inspection. And then if they don't do it by the time that they're required, they get a letter saying, hey, you're past due, please contact. If not, we will go with those and we will schedule those or contact those businesses. So you can see where the revenue is at right now. It's expected to be about the same as it was the year before. Plan reviews, obviously it's a much smaller revenue. This one we really don't have a lot of control over, to be honest with you. This depends on how many businesses come into the city and what's required for their plans. So we do have a pretty good average of that, but it's based upon those requirements. And then the C of O inspections is along the same line. So those we have the ability to capture that, but necessarily we don't have the ability to control the volume of them. All right, we'll get into our staffing levels. You can see here the history of our staffing since 2013. We were in suppression. We were at 14, which was after the Great Recession. We obviously did some things that created vacancies through attrition, through retirements. One thing we were able to do in that year is we got a SAFER grant for 4 people, and that's why you'll see it go to 18 the next year. The benefit is we were able to maintain those after that because we obviously were in a better financial place. And then in 2018, you'll see that go from there to 20. We also received a SAFER grant to go from 18 to 21. These grants usually run 3 years. The first one we got an extension for 1 year on one of the guys. The second one we got was 3 years, and they're cost sharing in those grants as well. And then you'll see the peak of 21 in 2020, and then through attrition we've kind of got down to where we're at 18. And then you'll see in administration it's 2.5, which I'll detail a little bit here in a second. So out of the 21 personnel we have, it's the chief, myself obviously, our fire marshal, we have a part-time administrative assistant, and then 18 firefighters in suppression. All right, so for our budget, beyond these items, everything is pretty much staying status quo. And I'll kind of go through each one of these a little bit for a little reasoning why. Our vehicle maintenance, this is something it's very hard to predict. Obviously, I can predict some preventive maintenance, but some of the things that may break down, it's very difficult to predict that. We have been budgeted at $20,000, but I do know that we have a purchase of some tires for our ladder truck coming up, which equates to about $4,500 to $5,000. So that's why that's added in there. But historically, we've been like, over the last 4 years, it's been, or 3 years, 23,000, 28, and then last year was 42,000. So I think this is kind of a happy medium for us. Building maintenance, this one's a little bit different. So because we've been under construction for the last few years, this number was 10,000 before that, or right around there. We've been able to absorb some of those repairs and things through the renovation process. So it's down at 3,500. but I know, like, for example, we had a door problem this year that we had to repair. It was $3,800 for one repair, so we were over that at one door. So that's why that ask is there. Protective gear, this was up around $10,000 previously. I know we received a gear grant a year and a half ago, but we have brought in some new people. Number one, number two, that was for 2 sets. And just like the police with their equipment, ours also ages out with time. So it has a life cycle. So we want to make sure we can replace gear on a regular cycle and not get too far behind and require a large purchase. Each set of our protective gear is about $4,200. So that would equate to 2 sets of gear along with maybe some helmets, gloves, or boots if they need to be replaced. Medical supplies, this is another one that we've seen increases in costs just due to the nature of the economy at this point. We are actually on pace right now to hit about $30,000 this year, so we're over budget. We have a couple guys who work great trying to shop these items around to get the cheapest costs. But once again, it's something that it's difficult to control. But we also do use some replacement systems through the hospital for some of our equipment. So the equipment that we can replace through them or exchange, we do. So this is just the disposable equipment that we use, oxygen, some wear and tear on some of the equipment like the monitors for cables, things of that nature. Membership and dues, this isn't a large increase, but it's a small one. We see the increase just because there's an increase in the cost for Western Way Mutual Aid system, number one. And number two, we're also charged for, the state charges for some of the EMS runs. So we get quarterly billing, which equates to about $6,000 a year. So that's where that's at. The other proposal here that hopefully will come around this year, which I know I've spoke to you previously about, is the Michigan GEMT, which can create about $150,000 to $180,000 in additional revenue. This has been approved by the state, but the funding mechanism hasn't been determined yet. How you submit for it, when you'll get it, things of those nature. So that's still in the works. So I know it's been going for a little bit here. Hopefully it makes some headway this year and we can capture some more of that revenue for our EMS funding. Grants. So these are a few grants. The SAFER grant and the radio grant we applied for. We did not receive either one of those. The SAFER was for 3 additional people that I applied to. It wasn't funded for this past year. There's a lot of criteria that go into that. It's history of them, need, and it's also you're being competitive with other communities. So they base it upon those things. So we weren't given that. The radio grant, we did submit for that. We were unsuccessful, which I know would have been a great funding mechanism because of the cost of radios these days and the requirement. We do have some requirements for radio upgrades, not like the police department does, but we do have some radios that are out of service. They're called legacy radios. So after January of this year, as long as they're operational, they're great. They won't repair them, is essentially what it is. You can go to third-party vendors, but the manufacturers won't repair them anymore. Those are not all our radios, but probably about half of them. The third one is a vehicle preemption grant, which I know I've discussed a little bit here. That's still in motion. For those who you may not remember or unfamiliar with it, what this is this goes onto each intersection of the light, and then each police and fire vehicle will have a module in there when you're running lights and sirens. It'll cycle the lights so they turn to make it safe for passing through each intersection. The benefit for this is it's covering pretty much all of Western Wayne County. So this was just over $6 million grant. And there's a 20% cost share that they're working on getting Wayne County to cover the majority of that. So if there was no coverage at all, which Wayne County has agreed to do some, just unsure how it's going to go, it would be about $60,000 for the entire city to equip that in our vehicles. But we've been assured that funding is coming from them. Some of the other ones, and I'll cover the fire station grant, which we all know. The AFG grants, which is equipment. The SAFER grants for people, AFG grants, they're due to open in early 2026. It says February, but I think with the issues with some of the government shutdown and things have affected this, so they haven't opened up yet. So this gives us an opportunity to be able to write for vehicles, which is a huge expense. So these generally are a 10% match. So this will be a good opportunity for us to present that whenever that opens. The fire station grant, and I'll have this on the next page here. Fire station grant. So we've had 2 grants. We were initially given a $400,000 grant through the MEDC. That was $200,000 prior to construction. And then after we started, it submitted, and we received the other $200,000. So that grant is expended. The other grant was an $800,000 one through the LEO. That one has been extended through March of this year. It expired last September. I put in an extension for 6 months. They asked how long it would take us to expend all those funds. So we have to the end of March. So at this time, we've drawn $725,000 or just above that. So we have a balance of about just under $75,000 remaining in the grant. So here you can see the station renovations, kind of how they're going now. At least they are moving forward. I know you guys can see some progress, I hope. It looks much, much different. Hopefully with the warmer weather here, we should be moving a little bit faster. It's supposed to warm up a little bit here. As you can see there at the top left, that was our old locker room and the lounge area. It's going to be a gym, a small gym. On the bottom there on the left where you see all the insulation, that's the kitchen area. Much larger, much different. And that's the bottom right, that's the door you see. It replaced that entry door that we had there, the household or residential door that was on there forever. That's more commercial grade and a little more durable for us, so that'll be well. And then in the middle, on the top right there, you see those doors will be moving, and what they're doing is they're just shoring it up. The pillar in the middle and across the top are going to be coming out, so that'll be opened up when they move those doors. So they're just shoring up some of that stuff there. So what have we kind of done in the last year here? I know we're working on the multifamily inspections, which will be coming up this coming week. So we're working on moving towards that. CPR, we have a few people that have been trained in CPR, and we're getting some classes going. We've done some things with some of the social organizations, number one. I know Parks and Rec, and we have a schedule coming in that will allow for public access to that, so we can put on classes. I know that's sought after by many communities, and just like ours, we have an opportunity to help some of our citizens be trained and hopefully not have to use it, but if they do, it's there. Car seat installations, we have one person currently that can do this. This kind of ebbs and flows. It's weird. We get some referrals for that, but they'll be able to assist to install car seats in vehicles. We don't install them. We teach them how to do it. So this is not just us coming to do it and then 2 weeks later they come back. We instruct them and show them how to do it. We make them do it. We do it, we show them, and then they can do it on their own from there. Then along the lines like police with the training professional development, the NFA is National Fire Academy. I know you guys were involved in a project that one of our gentlemen had for his executive fire officer class. That's a huge, huge undertaking. Not a lot of graduates throughout the country for that. So obviously that's a big deal. Some of the other things are fire instructor. So the new curriculum, which the state has came out in the last few years, is prior to being able to train as a fire officer, you have to become a fire instructor. So we have a fairly young department as far as years on the job. You have to get a minimum of 3 years in the fire service before you can start these courses. So we have 10 out of the 18 in suppression that have 4 years or less. So we're kind of hitting that sweet spot to where all these guys can start getting a lot of this training. So we had 3 members go through it last year. We've already had a few prior to that, and then the same thing with the fire officer courses. These are things that we require for them to take those upgraded positions. So we'd make sure that they're trained and they're available and they have the knowledge and the resources to be able to make those decisions for us. The flashover training, that's something that these guys get to do when they come on. We get it, it's live fire training. So they get put in a live fire scenario so they can see what it's like, understand what fire may do, things of that nature. As you guys see, if you've driven by the new station over here, they have this available at the new station over here, which we're going to be able to do some things. I met last week with some chiefs over there, and they're coming up with some programs where we can utilize that training facility as well. Not just for this, but for multiple other things. So I'm looking forward to that. That's a beautiful building over there. And the other thing is conferences. So myself and the fire marshal go to conferences for continuing ed, for inspections, for fire prevention things. And number two is we go to a lot of stuff through the chief stuff to learn about grants. More importantly, like not just grants for our community, but we're more apt to get them if we do regional grants. So that's a big resource that we utilize. Look to the future. So this is kind of off the CIP. I have 5 things on there. Utility vehicle replacement. This is looking at, we have that pickup truck. It's a 99 Dodge. So it's been around for a little bit. It's served us well. It's still going fine. But that's why that's in there. It's been in there for the last few years. The office renovation on the north side, that's the pictures you see there. So the reason that's in there that it wasn't before is so when they closed the back of the station down, our guys actually moved all this stuff up here and put a temporary kitchen. Little did we know it would be a year and a half, but that's our temporary kitchen now. That used to be 2 offices. So obviously when that stuff comes out, you know, obviously we desire to make sure that that's brought to where it becomes an office again. So that's what those 2 things are in the pictures there. Hose and nozzle replacement. We've had this on for a little bit too. We're just looking to replace some of our dated equipment. We do have hose. We have approximately 1/3 of our hose that is pre-1987. So it's tested every year. It passes testing, but there are some standards out there that they don't want to use because of the age of it. It's understandable. The replaced aging equipment. So this is kind of goes along the lines of the life, which you talked about, some of the police equipment. These are pieces of equipment that do have a life expectancy. It's usually about 7 to 10 years. And after that, doesn't mean it can't be used and is serviceable. But what we are told is it takes the liability off of them and puts it on us. The equipment still works, they'll still maintain it, but those things are there. The benefit is they do have a program that you can take it and purchase it over many years. For example, there are monitors. Each one of those monitors is about $65,000. So obviously we have 4 of them, to bring it to you is $260,000. That's a huge hit. So they have a program. It's, I talked to the rep. It's about $100,000 for 6 years, and we get all that equipment there, along with AEDs for the police cars. So this is something you'll see in the CIP, that there's small amounts for a few years, and the purpose is to get to that first big year, we kind of get to that money, and then it'll go from there, continuing on with the larger amount. That also includes service plans with those, so they maintain them, replace any broken parts, and at the end of that, we do own it. It's not a lease or anything of that. And then the vehicles, the rescue and engine. I know after many talks with the city manager and in the previous CIPs, we've had money set aside for vehicles. But what this is it's a purpose is to say, hey, every year, if we can, set a certain dollar amount aside when we do need those vehicles, like an engine that's currently about $1.1 or $1.2 million, that we don't have to take that large hit at a time. Rescues are approximately $300,000, so that would be able to soften the blow when we do have to get those. Now, the thing is that we always have in play are the grants. So those generally are 10% match. So it would be great if we could get an engineer for say on that. It's $120,000 compared to $1 million, so that money could be utilized elsewhere. That's all I have.
Okay, thank you, Chief. Couple of things. Wouldn't it be better on the radios to do with the police? Because aren't they?
They are. We're working on that. They actually I had some conversations, and they asked for some information on us, so we are included in that as well. So. Okay.
And then on the vehicle, I know there's the cost of the vehicles, but there's also, what, a 2-year build on a lot of those?
Yes. Well, the rescues, if you get them like we have them now, they're anywhere from 20 to 24 months. There are they have done some things now that they have similar vehicles with a 6-month window. So there is some availability. It's just not necessarily what we get exactly. So it's doable a little less time, but yes, if you order them, you're talking up to 2 years. Fire trucks can be up to 3 years. So I guess that's a little bit of the forecasting, is you have to be able to get in line, and everybody thinks like you hear 3 years for a fire truck. It doesn't take them 3 years to build it. You get in line to be built. So the actual build time is like 12 to 14 weeks. So it's not that long in that 3 years. So they're designing it, making sure all the material's there, and then you get in line, and then once your number's up or you're in the order, that's when they start building that.
I would assume it's not like going to Ford, Chrysler, GM dealership when you just pick one off the lot.
It is not.
You order it, and then a specific company, probably very few do it, so.
There are, and I don't know if you've seen, there's been a lot of stuff in the media about this, especially with the cost. They've been in front of Congress talking about how the cost elevated so quickly. So the hope is that maybe some of that brings some of that down, but only time will tell with that.
Okay, thank you. Further comments from
Mayor?
the Councilmember King?
I was looking at the overtime for this year. It looks like as of January 31st, we're at 133%.
Yes.
But I don't see, and for 2026, 2027, we're keeping the overtime about the same. Is there?
There's a reason why we're over at this point. I'm sorry to cut you off.
Okay.
Last year, I was tasked to say, hey, if we were at 18 personnel, what would the overtime cost be predicted to be? And that's the number you have on there. We did have a member retire in May, so we had a small area where we had to go through the hiring process. So we incorporated some of that overtime through that. And then we had a member resign in the fall, so we had the same thing. So you have a few months where the hiring process takes effect and the training, which is about 6 weeks before they can become manpower, depending on their qualifications. So that's where the overtime comes in, number one. Number two, we have had a couple injuries. So I tried building some of that in there, but most of it is through vacancies that we've had through the two spots. So you'll see some of that. The personnel costs will be down in the salaries, but up in the overtime a little bit.
Okay. Another question I had was regarding the CIP. I had actually 6 items on the CIP. I had one that you didn't mention was the ambulance replace plan for $65,000, or maybe it's no longer on there.
That was I'll go back. That was the vehicles that rescue and the engine that's.
Okay, they're
both
just
of them.
bundled
So-
together?
Yes.
Gotcha. Looking at the full CIP for the fire department is about $370,000. I guess kind of similar question to the police chief. Is there like 2 to 3 items that you would see the most important to take care of, opposed to if in the event we can't take care of all?
Yes. So I think the most important one, obviously, I think would be the station, those front offices. I think that would be at
Agree
the
with
top
that.
of that list. And then the hoses and the nozzles, just because of the age of the equipment. And obviously, we need to replace some of that equipment. And some of those we haven't replaced, obviously, in a very long time. So it's worked well for us. So those would be the 2 items I think that would be most important.
All right, thanks. That's all I have.
Thank you. Mayor Pro Tem Dole.
I know we've had a few issues with the building, and I was over there a couple weeks, and the front lobby, or whatever you call it, up by the temporary kitchen, caught my eye, because water was just pouring down. As I looked up into the rafters with no ceiling, it's like the boards are turning black. I'm curious if our firefighters are safe in there, if black mold is growing up in there. And then, when I asked the firefighter over there about it, he mentioned that the roof was built wrong. They use OBS instead of regular plywood. What's the plans to get that fixed?
So that was included in the bid that you guys had. So they are going to be redoing those front areas, both for the carpentry and for the roofing material. So a lot of that stuff that you see, the plywood or the OSB, will be coming off. The roof that is going up, the metal roof, cannot be used with OSB. That's the manufacturer's requirement. It has to be plywood. So any OSB that's on there will be coming off. So number one. Number two, they have to rework some of those front areas a little bit, the vestibules, just because they're not pitched correctly and the water is running back towards the building. So that should be remedied in the near future. Number one. Number two, those are not open to your everyday use by the firefighters. So it's not like it's inside the building, that's in that out part. It's more of a pass-through than anything else.
So they're safe?
Yes.
Okay, thank
We did have an air quality test done in the very beginning of this. They went through the entire station and pulled for mold and spores and things of that nature in the entire station. So we did have that air quality test done.
Very good, thank you.
Yep.
Mayor,
Councilmember Karafotis.
first of all, I just want to make sure that you said the hoses are from 1987?
Yes.
Okay. So that's number one. And then, this time that I've been on council, I thought the CIP included that we're putting money away for the ambulance, does it not?
In all the previous years, we had been up until last year when we had to correct that budget deficit.
Yes.
But it'd be my intent to make sure we do that this year.
Okay.
Go back, the police had a similar one for vehicle replacement as well, and to go back to that would be excellent.
Okay. And then the contractual services, is that because of the grant?
You want to
Right.
talk to this one, me too?
It's for fire, it's
It's for all the stuff?
fixing the fire
Okay,
station.
that's what I want to
Yep.
make sure.
So-
Yep.
Okay,
The contractual services in there is $16,000 that is in there that's in the normal part of the budget. That's for some of the programs we run, our documenting program, things of that nature. The other part
Right.
is for the station renovation.
the 295,000, that's a little bit of an increase. So
Yes.
I want to make sure it was from that.
Yes, yes.
Okay, and then the vaccinations with the OSHA physicals, it used to be 8,000, then the last 2 years it's been nothing, and then we budgeted for it next year. Are they not getting vaccines, or it's every 2 years, or?
Those are not. So what that is you'll see there's a gap there, because those are contractual. What it is there's testing that's done. It's it's early detection of cancers for firefighter-specific cancers. So annually, we have these tests done. What happened is last year, why that was done, it was done prior to the budget year.
Okay.
So that's why it's built in. And the 9,000 is, it's $500 a person, and there's 18 guys. So
Okay. Let's talk about the guys then. So we have 18 guys, and we're currently running a 6-man shift with 1 ambulance, right?
correct.
Okay. You said our EMS revenue was 700,000,
Correct. Around there, yes.
and we have another ambulance available, we just don't have enough men to run it, correct?
We do run about 20% to 25% of the time with 6. What that depends on is if anybody's off on vacation, sick, personal time. If there's not anybody off, then we do run 2 rescues.
Okay, so if we had more than 18 guys, though, on a regular basis,
It would increase the amount of times we'd be able to do it. I can't promise it will be every day because.
but it could
depends.
increase our revenue,
Potentially, yes. So.
right, if we're running 2? Because, I mean, obviously, the 700 includes the 20% that we're running the second one. I get that.
Correct.
Okay. And then you say that about, well, if we don't have somebody off or somebody hurt, is anybody hurt right now?
No.
Okay. But I mean, it does happen. That's
It
the
does.
nature of your job. So if we had more than 18, we would have coverage when people are hurt or on vacation.
Yes, but that's, I mean, similar to the police, that's covered by overtime. So fortunately, in the last year, we had somebody off for a month with a back injury, and then a couple small things being off for a couple weeks being sick, but nothing too large scale.
So we currently have 18 firemen for suppression. Do we need more? And if we had all the money in the world, would you say, yes, we need a couple more guys?
Absolutely. I mean, absolutely. If I could run 2 rescues every day, that would be great, but.
So are we turning away?
No. So this is where your mutual aid systems come in.
That's, I mean, are we turning away if Westland calls us, we say we're using our ambulance, we can't send the second one?
If we're tied up, then we do that, yes. But we also do, if we have, for example, 2 medicals going on at once, and our rescue's on one, and our engine goes to it, we're all paramedics, so we still can do the treatment. But if it's a run that can hold, if it's not life-threatening, we will hold that until our rescue can clear a hospital and come and take that person. So to say every time we have 2 runs together that we do mutual aid it is not true. So it does happen, though. I won't say that it never happens, but
Okay.
it's
So,
about 250 runs a year that we mutual aid.
okay. Do you know how many we're turning away?
Turning away as far as,
Because we don't have that second ambulance.
well, mutual aid is responding 250 times a year to
Right.
rescues.
We are responding. Do you know how many that we can't respond to because we don't have?
No, that's how many times we contact them for us.
Oh, for us, okay. But
Yes.
when they contact us and we can't help, do you know how many times that is?
I don't know, I wouldn't know that number because dispatch doesn't even contact us, but I do know that we went on about 280 mutual aid runs. So, but I can't tell you how many times they would say, hey, are you available? Because we have the regional dispatch center, when they contact them, they can see who's available. So they don't even contact us and ask us if we're available.
Okay. So we don't have all the money in the world, so we can't say, how many guys do you need? But we have some money, and the fire department's very important. Do we need more guys?
Like I said, would it be great? Yes. It would give us an opportunity to run 2 rescues. But as you can see, our historic manpower, we've run 18 for a long time, and we are able to provide at least that 1 rescue, and we have a paramedic engine. So in a perfect world, yes, but and to be honest with you, we've struggled. As you can see, we are at 20. That wasn't necessarily because we didn't hire anybody. We've also struggled, like the PD, finding people or
Yeah.
keeping people. So we have the same issues. So we'll have a couple openings, and we'll only have maybe 2 to 3 people for each opening apply even.
Why do you think that is?
It's across the board. So it's the state and the local places are working on this, but it's across the board that there's shortages. So
Is there shortages because no one's applying, or because we're not able
nobody's
to pay?
going into the field.
That's what I was going to ask. Okay.
Yes.
Okay.
Or not as many people are going into the field. How about that?
Okay. Another question, is the CPR classes going to be at Radcliffe? Are they going to be over there?
That was the plan, so that hasn't been solidified yet, but
Okay. The $74,000 that's left over from the grant, obviously that's going to be easily spent.
yes.
I don't expect this answer right now, but do we have any idea, like, how much more? Like, I mean,
I do
mean,
have a
when-
ballpark.
when you included what we already spent, was that for the things that we've already approved, or that doesn't include what we approved and hasn't been done yet?
Yes and no. So the grant, what I've learned through this grant process is they're very particular in what you do. So I was audited by the grant, and they wanted anything over $1 to have 3 bids. So you didn't have to get bids necessarily, but you had to get 3 prices to submit to them. So what I've done with the remainder of the grant is I've waited and submitted stuff that has been bid out, because then we have the bid process that we can turn in, and they don't question it. So that's for my own learning. I know we're going to go above what we had, so I'm just utilizing that. So I do have a ballpark for the grant where we're at, what we've bid out, and then what the total is. The expectation for guesstimate is probably 2.5 to 2.6 was where we'll land for the cost of the total renovation.
And how much of that is covered by the grant?
1.2 million. That included the money that we paid to the original contractor too.
Right.
So
And is this coming out of what's necessarily their budget, or just the general fund? Because obviously
Ultimately,
your budget can't.
Ultimately, it's a capital project that hits the general fund, basically our rainy day. What we are operating efficiently this year, and right now it's being recognized within the general fund and they're operating, but it'll be transferred by the end of the year to be recognized as a capital expense. But currently, right now, I haven't asked for it to be moved over to capital because it's my ability to track our overall performance at the fire department and our cost, because we're spending a lot of money over there, but if they're operating below budget, which they are, if you take that away, we have a good idea of exactly what kind of general fund hit this is going to have. So it's been a little bit of a tracking mechanism for myself, but one that the treasurer is soon to make me clean up. But at the same time, it's really about getting through the end of this year and having the least amount of negative impact to the overall finance of the city from that project until we can see what we can do about recuperating some more.
Okay. Thanks, Aaron.
Thank you. Further questions, comments from the table? Okay, thank you, Chief.
Thank
Very
you.
good. All set, Zach? Okay, now we have our 21st District Court, our court administrator, Mr. Brandon Krupe.
Good evening. Brandon Krupe, Court Administrator. Make sure here we go. Thanks for having me. So just go over our organization. There's our court staffing with 1 judge, an administrator, a court recorder, judicial secretary, probation director, and 1 full-time security officer and 2 part-time that split the week, and 5 full-time deputy clerks. Just our caseload trends over the last 5 years, we saw a big dip in '24 and a decline '23, '24, but we're getting our 2025 numbers. We're seeing an increase back up to closer to not to pre-COVID time just yet, but it's obviously there's a big difference in the last year compared to the 2 previous years. And here is a more detailed look at our caseload. You see, I just broke it down into different types of cases that we see come into the court. The non-traffic, traffic is our highest amount, and then parking and civil is in there on the end. Just more information, some of the things that we have going on. We started a collections program back in 2023. And in 23 and 24, we issued a total of 944 tax garnishments. So filing tax garnishments through the state of Michigan to collect some of the outstanding monies owed in fines and costs. And in those 2 years, it results in a collection of just under $92,000. In the fall of 2025, we increased our garnishment numbers to over 1,000, which is more than we did our kind of first 2 years of trial run. And so far, we've received 14,000, but those are just starting now to come in as the tax season has begun. So I won't have a number of what we'll see from that until later on this year. And we are looking to just continue to expand this program and look to run approximately or about 1,500 tax garnishments each year moving forward. Just some of the things of what we do. This is, I wanted to share some information on how we do. So the state periodically has every court in the state of Michigan run public satisfaction surveys. Just wanted to share our information here. The last time we did this was in 2023. They skipped the last 2 years, but we're going to be starting, it's rolling out again, and we're going to start it here in the next couple of weeks. And just to look at, again, how we do, we met or exceeded the statewide averages on the scores. People come into court and then they get a survey to fill out based on their experiences and interactions with the court, with the staff, with the judge. And like I said, I'm happy to report that we exceed the statewide averages compared to other courts. You can see, like, it's broken down into categories. You know, the staff listened to what I had to say, treated me the same as everybody else. You know, the judge treated me the same as everybody else, listened to what I had to say. So like I said, we're going to start the newest one a couple weeks from now. So if you stop by, you know, fill one out. What we're looking to do is we're sustaining our mission through modern resources. So how we're doing, what we're doing and what we use our funds for. So the 21st District Court will continue to deliver justice for all by providing access, protecting rights, resolving disputes, and applying the law under the Constitution. We rely heavily on technology these days. 96% of all of our civil cases exist in paperless form on the MyFile platform. 2/3, more than 2/3, a little more than 2/3 of all court hearings are conducted virtually. And the court will continue to use, we have a court innovations program that to resolve civil infraction tickets, people can go online, communicate with court staff, communicate with the police department to resolve things in a virtual space outside of the courtroom as well. And then we try to maintain, status quo through the years with expenditures. The biggest things this year to ask for the 3% cost of living wage increase for all employees, which runs with what the city has in store as well. And then we're looking for spending through our building fund for updating computers and technical equipment to keep pace with demands of today's evolving digital-based operations. Regarding the building fund too, I mean, there's some details that Judge Hammer and the city manager are looking into, but for the time being, we are requesting use of these funds for technology upgrades. That's it.
That was it. Very good.
Short and sweet.
Questions or comments from the table?
Mayor?
Councilmember Hughes.
You said that the majority of your cases involve traffic?
Yes.
Okay, what percentage of cases?
Ooh, I didn't have percentages. I can go back to that slide. So, my bad quick math here.
More than double civil?
Yeah, it's more than half. It's 8,600 total in 2025, and then 5,000 of them were.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thanks.
With that in mind, we have our new system. We're going to be managing traffic citations and court appearance. Is it?
No.
Traffic and all that will still come to the 21st Court. If that's the here, we'll have some more white violations.
That's a,
Traffic is the lion's share, and I think if you notice, if you look at those graphs,
I'm
with traffic on it.
so sorry.
When we have a traffic officer employed, you'll see it, in 2021, we had almost, I think we had two, in 2021, we had two. Number one, and the staffing level dropped, police department, 24, now we're picking them back up, and you'll see it's rising, so.
so will we see somewhat of a reduction there?
No, not from our Tennessee, it's not the police chief, to staff the traffic bureau and our department, so really the traffic numbers driven from our patrol
Right,
officers.
okay, all right.
The light side of it, which would be on the far right, that's also non-traffic, it's the light blue, but that includes misdemeanors, felonies, all those other kind of cases that come through. I don't see the lion's share of the caseload that comes through them is within the board. It's minuscule to what traffic and all the others. Sorry.
No, thank you. Thanks.
Anything else? Nope. Any other comments from the table? Okay, thank you. Appreciate it.
Thank you for having me.
Okay, at this time, we'll have public comment. Anybody wishing to speak? All of our public that's here. Anna? Okay. With that being said, and I do want to thank all of our chiefs and department heads that were here tonight, and we have more to come, but thank you for your time and the presentations. They were all very good, explained a lot of things for all of us, so thank you all for your time. No further business. This meeting is adjourned.